Join Cycling makes training simple. It builds a personalized plan around your level, your goals, and your availability. If you want structured training without the guesswork, try Join Cycling using the link in the description down below to take your training to the next level. Chaos for Tadej Pogacar. Why is Mathieu van der Poel walking down a cobbled sector? Only in Paris-Roubaix. We have 30 cobbled sectors. Truey d'Arenberg is the nastiest one with about 90 Ks to go before the Velodrome finish in Roubaix. All the big guns are here. Van der Poel, Pogacar, Van Aert, Pedersen. And break formation is a way to get a top 10 result. But this group's too big, so UAE start shutting down groups that are really big that they can't control. Alpecin and Visma were trying to slip into the break, but actually, is this a breakaway? Is this a peloton? Is this peloton 1? This group goes with like 50 riders, including 4 UAE riders, but no Tadej Pogacar, no Mathieu van der Poel or Alpecin riders. Pogacar was taking a nature break. He's like, what's going on up there? And so no break goes. Before there's even a chance to get a break, the big teams say, get in position. The cobble sector number 1 is starting. There was no break today. Ineos hit the cobbles in front, and then the punctures begin for everybody. Valscheid and including Mads Pedersen, the first of the big favourites to puncture. But UAE, they're in complete control of this stage of the race. Van Aert has a mechanical. He comes back with the help of new signing Owain Doull. It wasn't that chaotic a sort of a sequence of the race. It hadn't split into loads of pieces, but you see now Rui Oliveira has a mechanical. And so UAE are rifling through the riders, Bjerg, Morgado, Pollitt, until Pogacar. He starts to slide backwards and he wanted to change bike. He's seeing, or maybe he was about to take the front wheel out. He wants to change wheel or maybe keep his bike. He just put it back into the big gear, but his car's nowhere. So he has to take a spare bike for the time being, but he can't get anywhere on that spare bike. He's getting dropped by guys who've been dropped whilst riding that bike. Florian Seneschal for Alpecin now hears through the radio, Pogacar's dropped? Okay, time to actually put the pace on. And so, well, they're already pacing Alpecin maybe, and Pogacar does not want to ride that bike. He keeps putting the hand up, wondering where his car is. Visma put Pietro Matteo on the front to pace. So Alpecin and Visma, they're trying to make it as hard as possible for Pogacar to come back. But it's harder for him because he was alone. Bjerg and Pollitt were having a discussion. They were still in the front group. There was 3 UAEs in the front, and it took quite a while for them to wait. They keep Vermeersch up there. And all the while, Seneschal and Pietro Matteo are smashing it. Eventually, they do get back to Pogacar. He has to close a 45-second gap at a very inopportune time in the race because Havluy-Oales, that's where this race has opened up, and Mathieu van der Poel drops the first bomber from one of the favourites. The cooperation's not good afterwards, so it does allow Pogacar to come back. But note the time, or case to go rather. 98 Ks to go. He's finally come back after a protracted chase. He's got only Vermeersch with him, and as soon as he gets back, Brennan starts sending it because it's the Truey d'Arenberg lead out. So I don't know. Yeah, Pogacar had to spend some bullets in that phase. It's a miracle he survived Arenberg after that. Wout van Aert, because of the lead out from Brennan, he enters in first position. Del Crosso punctures. And then Mathieu van der Poel has a puncture. And usually on Arenberg, when you puncture, they're not ones you can ride on. No matter, Philipsen can give him his bike, even though I'm not sure they're the same height. Philipsen was using a bike with prototype pedals that were not compatible with Van der Poel, who was using normal pedals, so he can't take Philipsen's bike. Meanwhile, Thibaut Del Grosso is doing a switch job by putting his good wheel into Van der Poel's bike so he can ride on Arenberg. So great job from Thibaut Del Grosso. The problem is Van der Poel's already lost a minute. While this is all happening, we haven't seen the group in front. They're not even in Arenberg anymore. And it's the guys that Van der Poel wouldn't want to be there. Pogacar, Van Aert, Laporte, Pedersen. Van der Poel punctures again. Vermeersch crashes. Truey d'Arenberg was chaotic. Van der Poel's, this family's having the time of their life seeing the big champion up close, but Van der Poel was... He thought his race was over there, and I don't think he'd ever think he'd come back closer than he did. Ganna and Mayers bridge across that group, strong group. Bissiger, then he punctures again, sorry. Ganna there was a lot of punctures. Mayers and Pithy punctured again, and curiously, Pogacar punctures again. He tells Laporte, I think it's telling Laporte, I punctured. which I wouldn't tell Laporte I punctured, because then you would think he would start smashing it on the front for Wout van Aert. But then he looks around, where's Wout van Aert? He's punctured. So an incredible number of punctures. Van der Poel, Pedersen, Pogacar, Van Aert had multiple punctures today. Grisha pushes off Van Aert, and now he's got the Red Bull guys to come back, and they're a little bit cagey in front. Meanwhile, Van der Poel Ganna's come back to him, and Van der Poel's trying to hatch a plan. Maybe, I think it revolves around, I'll smash the cobble sections, you can pace the paved sections because you're really fast. That seemed to work pretty well, because the gap came down from 2 minutes plus after Arenberg to 23 seconds to Van der Poel's group. So without the 3 different changes, Van der Poel might have come back. But then something had to happen. They could not let the 3-time champion come back into the race. Van Aert drops the hammer on Orchy-les-Orchy. Pogacar follows. He counter-attacks, and Mads Pedersen is put on a gap. Pogacar looks around to see if Van Aert's still there, and in fact, Van Aert keeps relaying on that sector. Van der Poel starts to really look like he's hurting. Ganna punctures again. And with all the cobble sections coming now with a 5-star Mons-en-Pavel, Van Aert relays with Pogacar in front. Maybe a mistake, because Pogacar immediately attacks him. I mean, you saw in Flanders, we've seen Pogacar wants to make the race as hard as possible, attack as many times as possible, go solo, but he cannot rid himself of Wout van Aert. And behind, the group which had come to 23 seconds and had been dropped, Van der Poel got across them, starting to look like the wind's been taken out of them. Calling to the car, Laporte is blocking, so he's refusing to relay. Van der Poel's got those others leaning on him, sitting in his wheel. They got a 3rd place up for grabs. Sturven, Bissiger, a 3rd place in Roubaix is huge. Carrefour de l'Arbre, last chance for Pogacar to attack. He nearly goes down here. Rothersberger goes down hard. Hit by the Baltimore Ravens, but he holds it up. Van Aert runs it wide. Luckily, there wasn't a fan there, and Pogacar cannot shed Van Aert on the last 5-star sector. Van Aert starts to relay. He knows he's the favourite in the sprint in the Velodrome. The group behind, they were gone. Sturven attacks smartly. He's able to roll across for 3rd place, but Pogacar, he had to lead it out. I guess Van Aert had the Laporte card behind, and you never know what can happen in a Velodrome sprint. As we saw a couple of hours after this, Van Aert gets the jump on him. He wants to be first through the bend. If you've got the shorter line through the bend in front first with speed, you're never going to lose the sprint. And Van Aert erases all the doubts, wins Paris-Roubaix after 8 years of trying, dedicates his victory to his fallen teammate Michael Golart, ahead of Pogacar, who was magnificent. Sturven 3rd, then Van der Poel, Laporte, Mick van Dijk, Mads Pedersen, Bissiger, Pollard, Turnison. I hope you enjoyed the video. This is the hardest one for me to make each year, trying to make sense of everything in such a short video. I'll see you with the women's video as soon as I can tomorrow. Ciao, ciao.